If you enjoy stories of powerful revenge and justice, where the quietest person in the room is the one who holds all the cards, be sure to like, subscribe, and comment below with your thoughts on this tale of betrayal and vindication. The air in the lobby of Reed Industries still smelled the same. A sterile, expensive blend of polished marble, ozone from the humming servers, and the faint, cloying scent of the white lilies sienna insisted on having replaced every morning. For Arianna, it was the smell of a home she no longer recognized. Her badge read Aria Vance, a name that felt like a stranger's coat, borrowed and ill-fitting. It was a fragment of her life she'd left behind, a legal ghost created by her father's foresight. Now it was her shield. She walked past the memorial portrait of her father, his kind eyes seeming to follow her with a sad, knowing look. He had built this company on integrity and innovation. Looking around now, at the chrome and glass monstrosity the lobby had become, she saw none of him. She only saw Sienna. It was all flash, a hollow reflection of success designed for magazine covers, not for longevity. Her designated workspace was not an office, but a hot desk in a noisy, open-plan bullpen, a clear signal of her lowly status as a temporary data consultant. She was here to observe, to understand the rot that had set in since her father's death and her own subsequent necessary retreat. Sienna made her entrance an hour late, as always. It was a performance, a whirlwind of couture fabric, sharp perfume, and the staccato click of heels that announced her dominion. Her eyes, the same shade of hazel as Arianna's, swept across the room with a practiced air of dismissive authority. They landed on Arianna. "Oh, you must be the new analyst," Sienna's voice cut through the low hum of the office. "Aria, is it? Just try to keep up. We operate on a level of excellence here that you may not be accustomed to." The condescension was a physical thing, a sour taste in the back of Arianna's throat. She simply nodded, her face a mask of placid neutrality. "I'll do my best," she replied, her voice soft, forgettable. For weeks, this was the rhythm of her life. Arianna, as Aria Vance, was given meaningless tasks, cross-referencing outdated spreadsheets, organizing digital files that were already archived, fetching coffee. She was invisible, a ghost at the feast, and she used that invisibility. She watched. She listened. She saw the fear in the eyes of senior managers when Sienna entered a room. She saw the quiet desperation of the accounting team, working late every night to make impossible numbers fit. She saw the HR department, neutered and powerless, forced to process dismissals for loyal, long-serving employees who dared to question Sienna's extravagant spending. Arianna documented it all in a small, coded notebook she kept with her at all times. The company, her father's legacy, was bleeding. Sienna was a vampire, draining its lifeblood to fuel her own insatiable ego and lavish lifestyle. The betrayal was a constant, low-frequency hum beneath her calm exterior. It wasn't just the business. It was Sienna's narrative, the one she peddled in interviews and on social media, of the sister who had abandoned the family in its darkest hour. The story never mentioned Arianna's grueling battle with a critical illness right after their father's passing, an ordeal that had left her physically and emotionally shattered. Sienna had weaponized her sister's vulnerability, painting it as weakness and desertion to cement her own claim to the throne. The firing came on a Tuesday. It was, like everything Sienna did, a public spectacle. She stood in the center of the bullpen, a self-satisfied smirk playing on her lips. Her personal assistant held up a phone, already recording for Instagram. "Aria Vance," Sienna announced, her voice dripping with theatrical disappointment. "I'm afraid your performance has been lackluster. You lack the drive, the vision, the Reed fire." Arianna stood up slowly, her face unreadable. She felt hundreds of pairs of eyes on her, some pitying, some scornful, some just glad it wasn't them. "Here at Reed Industries," Sienna continued, gesturing grandly, "we are a family of lions. We don't have room for sheep. Your services are no longer required." She snapped her fingers, and a security guard, his face a mixture of embarrassment and apology, stepped forward. "Please escort Ms. Vance from the premises." The humiliation was the point. Sienna didn't just want her gone. She wanted her erased, made an example of. The video, as expected, went viral within the hour. "Boss babe, ruthless, Reed excellence," the comments read. Sienna's followers lapped it up, praising her strength and decisiveness. Arianna walked out of the building she had helped design, the cool city air hitting her face. She didn't look back. There was no anger on her face, no tears in her eyes. There was only a cold, hard, and patient resolve solidifying in her heart. The game had just begun. In the quiet sanctuary of her minimalist apartment, the public humiliation faded into background noise. The viral video was a minor annoyance, a gnat buzzing at the edge of her consciousness. Here, surrounded by the evidence, Arianna was not the victim. She was the hunter. Her dining table was no longer for meals. It was a war room. Financial statements were spread out like maps of enemy territory. HR complaints were flagged with colored tabs. Printouts of Sienna's social media posts, lounging on a yacht in Monaco, attending a fashion week in Paris, all written off as business development, were cross-referenced with company credit card statements. The pattern was insultingly simple. Sienna was treating the company coffers as her personal piggy bank. It was brazen, arrogant, and sloppy. She believed she was untouchable. A video call screen flickered to life. Jonathan Hale's face appeared, his expression etched with concern. He was a port in the storm, a man whose loyalty was woven from decades of friendship with her father. "Arianna, I saw the video," he said, his voice a low rumble of disapproval. "This has gone far enough. She publicly degraded you. We have the trust documents, the proof of your 51% ownership under the Vance holding name. We can file an emergency injunction and have her removed by noon tomorrow. Let me end this for you." Arianna looked at the screen, then back at the papers spread before her. She appreciated Jonathan's protective instinct, his desire to shield her from further pain. But he didn't understand. This was no longer just about pain. "No, Jonathan," she said, her voice even and calm. "That would be a corporate maneuver. It would be a footnote in the business pages. They'd say it was a power struggle, a family squabble." She would paint herself as the victim, the brilliant innovator pushed out by a shadowy, absentee shareholder. Her narrative would survive. She paused, picking up a fraudulent expense report. "I don't want to just remove her. I want to dismantle the lie she's built. Everyone, the employees, the shareholders, the public who praise her, needs to see exactly who she is and what she has done. She needs to be exposed by the truth, not just replaced by a legal document." Jonathan sighed, running a hand over his tired face. He had known her since she was a child. He recognized the steel in her voice, the same unyielding determination her father possessed. "What do you need from me?" he asked, already knowing he would follow her lead. "Patience," Arianna replied, "and a list of the major shareholders and their voting proxies. I need to know who will be in the room when the time comes." The days that followed were a blur of methodical, silent work. Arianna traced the flow of money from operational budgets to offshore accounts that funded a lifestyle brand that was nothing more than a shell corporation for Sienna. She found evidence of kickbacks from vendors who overcharged the company for services, with the difference funneled back to her sister. She discovered that Sienna had canceled a key research and development project, one that her father had called the future of the company, to pay for a complete renovation of the executive floor. It was worse than she had imagined. Sienna wasn't just a poor CEO. She was a saboteur, hollowing out the company from the inside, leaving a beautiful, fragile shell that was one strong gust away from shattering. Arianna's heart ached with a grief that was deeper than anger. She saw her father's face in every spreadsheet, his dream in every canceled project. This wasn't just about a company anymore. It was about legacy. It was about honor. Sienna was throwing a party to celebrate herself, of course. A lavish gala to launch a new brand identity for Reed Industries. The invitations were ostentatious, the budget obscene. Arianna watched the preparations online, a cold knot tightening in her stomach. Sienna was dancing on their father's grave, and the world was applauding her for it. The desire for immediate action for a swift and brutal end was a siren's call. She could leak everything to the press. She could call Jonathan and give him the green light, but she held back. Restraint was its own form of power. Patience was her sharpest weapon. She had to wait for the perfect moment, the perfect stage. She needed more than just financial data. She needed a human element, a voice from inside the crumbling castle. And she had a feeling she knew where to find one. The email arrived late on a Thursday night. It was sent from a Proton Mail address, the subject line containing a single cryptic phrase. He wouldn't have wanted this. Arianna's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The catalyst. The body of the email was brief. "I work in financial analysis. I see things they tell us to ignore. The marketing T&E is a smokescreen. The real damage is in the employee benefits and pension fund. She's using future obligations to cover present-day extravagances. I have the data, but I don't know what to do with it." The signature was simply MC. Arianna's blood ran cold. This was a line she hadn't even considered Sienna would cross. Embezzling from the company was one thing. Stealing from the retirement funds of its employees was a monstrous betrayal of trust. She replied with careful, encrypted instructions for a meeting. A small, out-of-the-way coffee shop in a different borough. Cash only, no phones. 2 days later, she sat in a dark corner booth, nursing a black coffee. A young man walked in, looking around nervously. He was barely in his mid-20s, his suit slightly too big for his frame, his face pale with anxiety. He clutched a briefcase to his chest like a life raft. He was Miles Carter. He slid into the booth opposite her, not making eye contact. "You're Aria Vance. I saw the video, what they did to you. I'm the person who can make sure what you have sees the light of day," Arianna said softly, her voice steady and reassuring. "Tell me what you found, Miles." He finally looked at her, and in his eyes she saw a flicker of the same integrity that had defined her father. He was young, ambitious, but not at the cost of his conscience. He opened his briefcase and slid a slim laptop across the table. "It started a few months ago," he whispered, his voice trembling slightly. "We were told to reclassify certain pension fund contributions, to list them as liquid corporate assets on the quarterly reports. It was an accounting trick to inflate the company's apparent cash on hand. I thought it was just aggressive accounting at first." He clicked open a file, a complex spreadsheet filled with numbers that made Arianna's stomach churn. But it was. They're not just reclassifying it, they're borrowing against it, using the pension fund as collateral for short-term, high-interest loans to cover her expenses. The fund's stability is being eroded. If there's a market downturn, or if the company's credit rating slips, it could all collapse. Hundreds of people could lose everything. He looked up at her, his fear warring with a desperate need to do the right thing. "Your father hired me. He interviewed me himself for my internship. He talked about the company being a family, about taking care of its own. She's destroying that. She's destroying them." The them hung in the air. The loyal employees, the ones who had dedicated their lives to Reed Industries. Arianna felt a surge of protective fury so cold and sharp it almost took her breath away. This was the final piece. This was the unforgivable sin. "You've done the right thing, Miles," she said, her voice imbued with a new, unshakable authority. "You've been incredibly brave. But I need you to be brave for a little while longer. Can you get me everything? The original fund statements, the loan agreements, the internal memos authorizing the reclassification. I need an undeniable, irrefutable chain of evidence." Miles nodded, a look of resolve hardening his young features. He had crossed a line and there was no going back. "I can," he said. "But what are you going to do?" Arianna leaned forward slightly, her eyes locking with his. "Sienna is hosting the annual shareholder meeting in 3 weeks," she said. "She plans for it to be her coronation. Instead, it's going to be her reckoning." For the next 3 weeks, Arianna and Miles worked in the shadows. He became her inside man, feeding her a steady stream of damning documents through a secure channel. She, in turn, worked with Jonathan to build the legal framework for the coming storm. They wove a net of evidence so tight and so strong that there would be no escape. Arianna was no longer just a wronged sister or a secret owner. She was an instrument of justice. The calm she had cultivated for so long was no longer just a defense mechanism. It was the quiet, terrifying stillness before a tsunami. And the wave was about to break. The grand ballroom of the Corinthia Hotel was a symphony of arrogance. Crystal chandeliers cast a glittering, cold light over the assembly of shareholders, board members, and fawning press. On a large stage at the front of the room, Sienna Reed stood at a sleek, minimalist lectern, basking in the glow. She wore a crimson dress that shimmered under the lights, a warrior queen addressing her conquered subjects. She was in her element, speaking in slick, prepackaged sound bites about synergy, disruption, and a new paradigm of brand-focused growth. The audience was captivated. The numbers on the screen behind her, the very ones Miles had identified as fraudulent, told a story of spectacular success. Arianna watched from the back of the room, just inside the main entrance, a silent, unassuming figure in a perfectly tailored navy blue suit. She was the antithesis of her sister. Her power was in her stillness, her presence a quiet weight in the ostentatious room. Jonathan stood beside her, his face a grim, stony mask. Miles was in the audience, looking pale but resolute, a single USB drive in his pocket. Sienna was wrapping up her triumphant speech. And so, as we look to the future, we do so with the confidence that Reed Industries is stronger, more agile, and more profitable than ever before. We have shed the dead weight of the past to embrace a bold new future. This was the moment. Arianna began to walk. Her steps were unhurried, measured. She walked down the central aisle, her low heels making almost no sound on the thick carpet. A few heads turned, then a few more. A ripple of confusion spread through the room. Who was this woman walking with such purpose towards the stage? Sienna stopped mid-sentence, her brow furrowing in irritation at the interruption. Her eyes narrowed as Arianna drew closer. A flicker of recognition, then disbelief, then pure, unadulterated fury. Security. Sienna's voice was a shriek, shattering the polished atmosphere. Security, remove this woman. She is not welcome here. She was a disgruntled employee I had to fire for incompetence. Two burly guards started to move towards Arianna, but Jonathan Hale stepped forward, holding up a hand. His voice, calm and authoritative, boomed through the ballroom's sound system, a technician having already been primed. I'm afraid she has every right to be here, Jonathan announced. In fact, she has more right than anyone else in this room. A hush fell over the crowd. All eyes were on Arianna as she reached the steps to the stage and ascended them gracefully. She walked directly to the lectern, standing beside her stunned, sputtering sister. She took the microphone from its stand. Her hand was perfectly steady. She looked out at the sea of confused faces. Good morning, she began, her voice quiet but carrying to every corner of the room. It was a voice of pure, controlled power. Most of you don't know me. For the past few months, I have been known as Aria Vance. But that is not my name. She turned her head slightly, her gaze locking onto her sister's. Sienna's face had gone white. My name, Arianna said, letting the words land with devastating weight, is Arianna Reed. A collective gasp swept through the ballroom. Murmurs erupted. Arianna held up a hand for silence and miraculously received it. My father, Thomas Reed, did not leave this company solely in my sister's care, she continued, her voice never wavering. He was a brilliant man, but he was also a cautious one. He understood the allure of flash over substance. Before he passed, he legally restructured his holdings. Jonathan? On the massive screen behind her, Sienna's glorious profit charts vanished, replaced by a scanned legal document. Jonathan's voice filled the room again. For the executed and notarized articles of the Vance Holding Corporation, which was established by Thomas Reed, I can confirm that Arianna Reed is, and has been since her father's passing, the majority shareholder of Reed Industries, controlling 51% of all voting stock. The room erupted. Sienna stared at the screen, then at Arianna, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. The foundation of her world had just crumbled beneath her feet, but Arianna was not finished. This was not merely a coup. It was an execution. My ownership gives me the right to be here, Arianna said, her voice turning from ice to steel. But it is my duty to my father's memory and to the employees of this company that compels me to do what I am about to do. She gestured to Miles in the crowd. He stood up and walked to the AV booth. My sister has presented you with a beautiful story today, a story of success and innovation. Now I'm going to show you the truth. The screen changed again. It was a spreadsheet showing the company's real, undoctored financials. Red numbers indicating massive losses were everywhere. A second document appeared beside it. Sienna's personal credit card statements, filled with five-figure shopping sprees and hotel bills, all paid for by the company. This is the fraud, Arianna stated, her voice cold and clear. The flagrant misuse of company assets to fund a lifestyle of grotesque luxury. Another document appeared. The loan agreements Miles had found. And this is the theft, she said, her voice dropping to an almost whisper, filled with righteous fury. This is proof that my sister, Sienna Reed, has been illegally borrowing against your employees' pension fund, jeopardizing the futures of the very people this company was built to support. A wave of outrage rolled through the room. Board members were on their feet, shouting. Shareholders were staring, aghast. And for those of you who still believe in the image, Arianna said, raising her voice slightly, for those of you who are swayed by her carefully crafted performance of a strong leader, let me show you the reality of her leadership. A video montage began to play. It was a brutal, rapid-fire assault of truth. A hidden camera clip of Sienna screaming at a terrified assistant, calling her worthless. A recording of a phone call where Sienna authorized an accountant to get creative with the numbers. Security footage of loyal, veteran employees being escorted out of the building in tears. Clips of Sienna on a yacht in the Maldives, intercut with the date-stamped memo canceling the R&D budget for that same week. The ballroom was in chaos. Sienna stood frozen, her face a mask of horror. The crimson dress that had looked so powerful now seemed garish, the color of blood and shame. Then came the final blow. The huge screen filled with the viral video Sienna had posted. The entire room watched as the smug, confident Sienna on screen fired the quiet, unassuming Aria Vance. They saw her smug pronouncement. "We are a family of lions. We don't have room for sheep." The video ended, leaving a close-up of Sienna's triumphant face hanging in the silent, horrified room. Arianna leaned into the microphone, her voice now the only sound. She looked directly at her sister, whose composure had finally, completely shattered. "You didn't just fire a consultant," Arianna said, her words precise and devastating. "You didn't just fire me. You tried to erase the person who built this company alongside our father. You tried to erase the foundation. But unfortunately for you," her gaze swept across the entire, stunned audience before returning to Sienna, "I built it to survive exactly people like you." The silence that followed was absolute. It was the silence of a truth so undeniable it left no room for argument. Sienna Reed, the glamorous, arrogant queen, was naked in the ruins of her own lies. She let out a choked sob and stumbled backwards, away from the lectern, away from the light, her public disgrace absolute and complete. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Sienna Reed was removed from the board by a unanimous emergency vote. She was escorted from the hotel not by her adoring assistants, but by grim-faced legal counsel, a phalanx of cameras documenting her tear-streaked, vanquished face. Legal action, both from the shareholders and the state attorney general's office regarding the pension fund, was inevitable. Her reign was over. Arianna did not stay to watch the fallout. She gave one brief statement to the press, promising to restore integrity and stability to Reed Industries, and then she disappeared back into the quiet anonymity she preferred. A month later, the CEO's office looked different. The chrome and glass were gone, replaced by warm wood and comfortable chairs. The imposing, throne-like desk Sienna had used was replaced by a simple, functional one. The memorial portrait of her father was back on the main wall, his kind eyes now seeming to hold a look of pride. There was a knock on the open door. Miles Carter stood there, looking more confident, his suit now fitting him perfectly. "You wanted to see me, Ms. Reed." Arianna smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "Arianna, please, and yes, I've been reviewing the company's strategic direction. It's a mess. There's no vision, no foundation. It's all just marketing fluff." She looked at him directly. "I need a new head of strategy, someone with integrity. Someone who understands that a company's greatest asset isn't its brand, but its people and its products. Someone who isn't afraid to tell the truth, even when it's difficult. I think you're that person." Miles was stunned into silence for a moment, his eyes wide. "Me, but I'm just an analyst." "You were never just an analyst, Miles," Arianna corrected him gently. "You were the conscience of this company when it had lost its way. The job is yours if you want it." A slow, brilliant smile spread across his face. "Yes, absolutely yes. Thank you, Arianna." After he left, Arianna walked to the great window that overlooked the city. The fire for revenge had burned out, leaving not emptiness, but a clean, quiet space in its wake. The hurt from her sister's betrayal was still there, a faint scar on her heart, but it no longer defined her. She had not sought revenge for the sake of cruelty, but for the sake of truth. She had reclaimed her legacy not by shouting, but by acting. She was not Arianna Reed, the wronged sister. She was not Aria Vance, the undercover agent. She was simply Arianna, the builder, the quiet leader. The woman who had faced down her own demons and her family's, and had emerged not just victorious, but whole. She was strong, she was vindicated, and finally, standing here in the heart of what she had rebuilt, she was free. Thank you for joining Arianna on her journey to reclaim her legacy. If this story of quiet strength and calculated justice resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe for more content, and share your thoughts on the most satisfying part of her revenge in the comments below.